Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video and happy Friday. Today I want to talk about a very requested topic. What I want to talk about today is the relationship between OCD and DPDR because they do go very hand in hand. Um, Before I dive into the topic, I just want to do a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. I'm just someone that's coaching from experience. Even if you recognize certain things of the topic we'll be talking about today, I'm not diagnosing you with OCD. I don't have the capacity to do that. So you might see yourself in certain things that I'm talking about today. That doesn't mean you have OCD. It might mean that you have OCD, but you don't 100% relate to what I'm talking about in this video. All I want to do today is from my own coaching experience and from my own personal experience, explaining what I have seen to be the relationship between OCD and DPDR and why so many people struggle with both. To answer the question, the first thing I want to say is that the reason why these two go hand in hand is because they have a similar root cause. So I always like to, also I don't like to label things. I don't like to define things in terms of OCD or anxiety disorder. What I do is I always ask the question, how can we understand what's going on? How can we understand why the brain would create a certain symptom? And really looking at the root and trying to understand. So that's what I'll be doing today. So what I have understood is that both DPDR and OCD have a similar root cause, and that similar root cause is a sense of deep unsafety. That can be unsafety about many different things. It can be unsafety in your own skin, with your own emotions, unsafety in life, unsafety in a situation that you're in. And so when both OCD and DPDR, you have to see as two protective mechanisms, and they're each protecting that same root cause, but just in a different way. But they do influence each other. So to paint a picture, if you feel very unsafe and you feel really, really scared in life or stressed and you feel like something's wrong, OCD is that part of you that comes up and says, all right, we're going to control everything in life so that we can manage our unsafety. So it latches on to try to control things to create a kind of what's the word? To create a false sense of safety based on certain compulsions. And so OCD is all about control. It's all about wanting to control life and the world around you so that then you can feel safe. Now, where does DPDR then come in? Well, OCD starts to try to protect the person, starts to try to create, compulsions to try to control the world around us. But OCD realizes that it can't because there's so much outside of our control. So we feel unsafe. We're trying to control. We realize the more we try to control, the less control we actually have. And the more we realize how many more things there are out of our control. And that creates a deeper sense of unsafety even. And so what happens is, because we feel powerless, because we feel like we can't run away from unsafety, we can't fight unsafety, we can't control unsafety, then DPDR comes in and DPDR says, all right, let's just zone out. Let's just disconnect. And so that's the feeling of depersonalization, is disconnecting from your sense of self, or derealization is just disconnecting from the idea of existence or reality in general, because it doesn't feel safe and you don't feel like you can do anything to control that unsafety. Now, the interesting thing that happens is that what your OCD then ends up doing, or let's just call it our control part, because many people might experience this without necessarily having OCD, but just having a need for control, is that our control part then experiences the DPDR and gets afraid of that and says, oh my God, we have to control the DPDR. So it tries to control. But the more it tries to control, the more it realizes there is no control, because you can't control your feelings like that. The more unsafe you feel, and guess what happens? The more you end up staying stuck in that depersonalization or derealization spiral. So even though your obsessive controlling part actually really, really, really wants to fix your DPDR and really, really, really wants to feel safe, what it very often ends up doing is actually pushing that sense of safety further and further away. Because I kind of always compare it to the metaphor of having sand in your hand. Imagine that recovery or peace is the sand that's in your hand. And just imagine that there's sand in my hand right now. And if I want to be in this peaceful state, if I want to feel this peace, what I have to do really is hold my hand open and just let it be there. But what OCD starts to do is it feels some sand is slipping through the fingers. That's what it feels when it starts to feel unsafe. And so what it starts to do is go, oh my God, I can't lose any more sand. So it starts to close, hold on. But the more it holds the hand closed, the more the sand ends up slipping through the fingers. And that's kind of that obsessive cycle that you get stuck in, where your OCD really, really wants to fix the DPDR. But the more it tries to fix, the more it feels like it can't fix. And the more it ends up spiraling into this anxious spiral, and the more you end up dissociating. And that's a dynamic I see with a lot of my clients, is this kind of spiral where they go deeper and deeper and deeper into rumination or into anxiety or even like into dissociation. Is the more your control part tries to grasp a sense of control again, and it realizes it doesn't have that, the more it just kind of starts to disconnect again. So how do we actually get out of this spiral if our OCD and DPDR are kind of influencing each other? Or even, because to be honest, I've never had a client that had DPDR that did not struggle with control in some type of way, even if it wasn't officially OCD. So just think of the term OCD as kind of an enlarged picture of this control part that I'm talking about. How do we actually overcome that or recover from that? And I can give you two quick insights in this. Your OCD part or your control part is going to have to let go of control and understand that it can let go and still be safe. So you can work on two things with this. The first thing is trying to challenge your beliefs about how unsafe life actually is, because this whole thing started with a perceived sense of unsafety. But a perceived sense of unsafety very often comes from the past. Something happened in the past that was unsafe. You had a panic attack, you had a bad trip, you had a traumatic experience, and your brain still thinks that that's happening right now, and it still thinks that therefore it needs to control, it needs to create safety. So the first thing you can do is actually questioning those beliefs about unsafety and asking your brain and challenging this OCD belief of I'm not safe or I need control. Do I really? Am I really unsafe in myself? Is life really as unsafe as I'm just picturing it to be? And if it's not unsafe, maybe I can actually let go of some control and start trusting a little bit more. So that's the first thing, is actually challenging the beliefs that you have about being unsafe that has made this OCD and this DPDR that tries to protect you from unsafety by disconnecting need to come into the picture. The second part, however, is what I think is even more important, is that you learn to sit with feelings of unsafety. Because what both OCD and the DPDR try to do is when you feel unsafe, they try to escape that unsafety. They try to run away from it, either by dissociating from it, either by literally trying to control everything so that you don't have to feel unsafe anymore. But a much easier way out is, what if you can just manage feeling unsafe? And the OCD then says, well, if we allow it to be there, then it will stay forever. But that's not true. What happens with emotions is the more we allow them to be, the faster they actually get processed and can disappear. An emotion is like an energy that just kind of wants to go out. So when you feel anxious or when you feel unsafe, when you feel that feeling of, oh my God, something's wrong, and your OCD is like, oh, we have to control, and your DPDR is like, oh, we have to pull away. What if you just actually sit with that feeling and face it and embrace those emotions of discomfort? How you can do that practically is learning mindfulness exercises or through meditation. You can actually learn to sit with these feelings, open up to them, and really become familiar with them, so that not only you have to keep going into this control response or into this dissociation response, but you can even actually let these emotions get out of your system the longer you sit with them, and the more you can actually learn to feel them, because feeling is healing. So when you feel something, you're not creating more of it, you're actually alleviating it from your system. And that's something that many people end up forgetting in their journey. I've put some links in the description with options for you to really learn to work with these both steps. So first of all, the challenging of the beliefs and really installing a feeling of safety again. And on the other hand, learning to really sit with these uncomfortable emotions. I have some great meditations on this YouTube channel. I also extensively go into this in my recovery course. So if you are really wanting to learn to tackle both the control part and the DPDR, and you're like, okay, I want to dive in, then you can explore that as well. But I'll place a little some links in the descriptions of options you can explore if you kind of want to start working on this more practically. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you guys really got something from this video. I enjoyed filming it. I think it's such an important topic, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.